All right, hello everybody. Thanks for being here. Obviously disappointed with the loss. Big rivalry game. Got to give Iowa a lot of credit. They played really well, started really fast, got ourselves down in a hole, and weren't able to come back from. Didn't play our best football. Simple as that. We've got to be able to respond. That's been the message this week. To be 1-0 in the Northwestern season. To be a champ, you got to beat the champ, and Northwestern's still the defending Big Ten West champions, and that's our message to our players. We got a lot to get better at. And I'm sure you have a lot of questions, so we'll leave it at that and open it up.
PJ, Gophers have had good quarterbacks through the years, but they've also sometimes struggled to get the guy who can really elevate the program. Looks like, Zach was really talented. Tanner's having a great year this year. He has some good freshmen. Do you feel like you're going to be able to get the guys who can elevate the program?
Well, I feel like we can do that. I feel like you can do that here at the University of Minnesota. I think there's a lot of strategy behind it, how you're going to be able to get those types of players to be able to come here. But it's not just about the stars or the rankings or things like that. I mean, Tanner Morgan was a 2-star, started out that way, and then worked his way up into a 3 or 3.5, 3.9, 4. I don't know what he was. But he was committed to us when we were at Western Michigan and known him for 5 years, and he's a winner. Right? I think you need to be able to find winners at the quarterback position. You know, we have a young man that's committed out 2 years, and we have 4 quarterbacks right now. And I know they're young, and they're going to keep developing and getting better, and there's competition within the group, which is really healthy. And Coach Shiraka's got a great relationship with all of them. And I think the development of our quarterbacks is getting there. We're still awfully young, right? We have 2 sophomores, and then we have 2 freshmen. But I think where we're going in terms of developing quarterbacks, recruiting quarterbacks to run our system is where we want to be.
I know these are impossible injuries to assess, but is Tanner making enough progress to be on track to play yet?
You know, I'm making progress, but he's in protocol, right? So that's all out of my hands. That's up to our medical staff and our trainers who are doing a great job. They did a great job on the sideline on Saturday as well of noticing him and making him go down. You know, a lot of people are sitting there telling me that I'm faking an injury and having a guy go down. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? So why would I want my starting quarterback to go down so he has to come out so I can put the true freshman in? That doesn't make any sense. But I was really proud of our medical staff of seeing that to make him go down, and I wasn't about to run back on the field. So I'm just glad that everybody saw it and we could get him the help that he needed.
Who would play quarterback if he didn't, or do you know that for sure or not? Who would be the starting quarterback if he wasn't?
Don't know yet. Whoever plays better in practice this week, if that it comes down to it. I mean, it's a competition between Jacob and Cole, and they're both getting better. They're both working really hard. They both made a ton of progress. They both had a lot thrown at them, and there's been a little bit of a blessing with Zach being hurt in terms of, Zach's hopefully going to get, he's definitely going to get the year back with the red shirt. But there's also been a blessing where those 2 young guys have gotten all the 2 reps, and they split those the entire year. So instead of going over to run scout team, they've been over with us in the varsity and being able to get all those reps as a true freshman, which usually doesn't happen, And so I'm really proud of the progress they're making. There's still 2 true freshmen, but I'm proud of the progress that they're making and Coach Shiraka's making with them.
When is that decision made on who the quarterback will be? Is it almost a game time or Saturday morning?
When I know, I won't call you and tell you that, but it will be later. It's hard to tell because Tanner's day by day, and so based on his status, and as we keep getting later in the week, I'll know more, and then from there I'll have the information and the data that I have. Based on how well Jacob and Cole have performed during practice, and then we'll make a decision. But you might see both of them play, even on Saturday if Tanner can't go.
PJ, you don't have to talk about Tanner's situation specifically, but I'm just curious. I think when people hear concussion protocol, it's kind of like this vague thing. From your perspective, like what happens when you guys have a player that goes through that, and just kind of what is the process that you guys go through?
Yeah, I think that's more of a question for the medical staff and the trainers because there's a specific protocol they have to go through and a series of checks and balances. Series of tests they have to be able to overcome, basically mentally, physically, and emotionally that they have to pass. So I'm not going to get into all the medical steps, but that's for our trainers and medical staff to deal with. And once they get into the protocol, I mean, there's nothing, the coaches have nothing to do with that. That's all medical department. And Tanner's in the best hands possible, though. I know that for sure with our staff.
PJ, how do you temper how much you give a freshman quarterback at this when he's taken over at this point in the season? Not to give him too much, you can't get him back to like week 1 and bring it all to him again. How much do you kind of give him both of them at this point?
As much as they can handle, depending on who plays or if they both play. What can they handle? What have they shown they can handle in practice? It's based on the game plan, right? So the game plan's done, right? And so now it's not necessarily what they can handle, what they can't handle of the whole thing. It's just what can they handle and not handle from the game plan. we feel like Tanner can handle the whole thing. If we feel like they can handle the whole thing, we'll keep the whole game plan in. If there's things they show that they don't do well throughout the week, we'll pull some out.
How do you think your team handled the loss in general, 24 hours later and Monday and whatever you saw?
Yeah, good question. They're disappointed. Everybody's disappointed with a loss. If they weren't disappointed, I'd worry. But it was one game, and it was a one-game championship season, and we lost that particular one-game championship season. We came in on Sunday and showed them everything that's ahead of them, right? Everything that's ahead of them, like we normally do. I remember Sunday afternoon when they first get there, we show them everything. We celebrate with them. We high-five with them. We show them where they are in the rankings. We show them all the things that you're going to talk about, and then we end it. We high-five each other. That's the last celebration that we have, and we move on to the next week. Nothing changed that way. And we ended it, and we became 0-0. And all of our focus went on to Northwestern, and they switched. They flipped the switch like that. This is a very mature group that knows how to do that. They know why they lost. I think that's really important to always address of why did we lose, not just we lost. Whether you win or lose, the result's the result. It's just how did you get to that result? Why did you get to that result? And how are you going to fix it? Whether it is a W or an L in the column. But this team's learning how to play championship football in November. We haven't been in this position in a long time, right? So this team's learning how to do it. We've had one that we were able to defeat a top 4 team, and then we played a top 20 team on the road that defeats a lot of top 10 teams at Kinnick Stadium. And we had an opportunity in the last possession. As bad as we played, according to us, right? As bad as we played up to our standards, we still had a chance to win the game in the last possession. That just shows how far this team's come and what they can overcome through a series of a game and in a hostile environment. Even though the first few possessions didn't go our way, they were still able to find a way to come back.
PJ, even when the running game's not effective, do you have to maintain that balance for the offense to run successfully?
Well, we were down 13-0 before you opened your eyes, right? And I think that changed the whole landscape of your game plan because you've got to take things in strides. Hindsight doesn't exist when you're coaching a game. It's all to be determined afterwards, and then you sit there and go, would I have done that, not do that? But you're down 13-0. Every decision you make is based on down 13-0. Right? So now we have to be, is it going to continue? Is it going to be 20-0 and then 27-0 and then 34-0? Is that what kind of game it's going to be? Or is it going to be, we're going to be able to stop the bleeding and now we're going to be able to get our run game established? So I think there was a combination of we got to be able to still be us, but we also have to start throwing the ball a little bit sooner here to get some explosive plays, get back in this thing. And I think that's where you saw kind of a shift away from the run game a little bit quicker.
How would you assess your special team so far in Big Ten play?
I'd say we're average. I think that we've done a really good job in some areas. In some areas we haven't. Obviously inconsistent in the kicking game, which we knew we'd be inconsistent this year with everybody. A lot of guys that are have major contributions being freshmen. I think you always expect that. Now you hope for the best, but you're in the back of your mind being able to expect those highs and lows from those guys. And they're working through it. Failing is growth. This is only going to help them get better. And it's part of that deposit you have to make. And just like last year, we were the youngest team in America, right? And at one point, everybody's like, oh, here we go. And then we win the last few games, and everybody feels good. But that young team grew up. These guys will eventually grow up. We just got to be more consistent on our kickoff team, our kick return team, stay on our blocks, give a little extra effort on the kick return game. And then coming down, we just got to do a better job on the kickoff team of tackling. But again, there's a lot of young players on those teams that we're playing. Based on some of the roles that we have to continue to rely on of our starters on offense and defense as well.
How'd you feel like Kamal did coming back in his first game?
I thought he did okay coming back. You come back from an injury in your first game. I would never sit there and expect that to be his best game. You always know there's probably going to be a little bit of rust here and there. But I thought he played really hard. And every day he's going to feel better and better, which is good for us.
Who's the kicker this week?
I don't know yet.
Is that a week-to-week competition?
Three-sided coin.
I don't. So there's 3 options.
We'll see.
Yeah.
2.5.
Is that a week-to-week competition right now between your kickers?
It is. It is. It really is. Because I think everybody's had an opportunity to win the job. And then what you do with your opportunity is how you get evaluated, right?
Is part of that, you talk about the internal pressure that you put on your team.
Absolutely.
You have 2 freshman kickers. Is
Sure.
part of that internal pressure
That is
having
internal
them in a
pressure.
constant competition as they're young?
You have to continue to do that. You want them to be really special. But there's a certain steps you have to go through to become really special. You got to grow up. You've got to fail to grow. You got to succeed to grow. There needs to be a combination of all those things. But the big word in between there's always the response to that. Whether you fail or whether you have success, how do you respond to all of that? And I've been pleased with how they've responded. The results been, inconsistent, but their response has been consistent, which I appreciate.
What does it do for your offense when you have two guys like Tyler and Rashad who are each closing in on 1,000 yards individually? When typically you might have one guy in an offense that can do that, but when you have two, that presents a whole nother.
Well, it's huge for us. Both of them had 2 catches that I think they'd want back, or 2 balls that they would want back. But we wouldn't be in a position we were in if it wasn't for their big time catches. Tyler on the 4th down catches that ball 100 out of 100 times. Somehow this one he didn't, right? Rashad catches a bender that hits him probably 95 out of 100 times, and they could take that one into the end zone possibly. So I know they'd want some back, but we wouldn't have been in the position that we were in without Tyler and Rashad, and they have been so consistent all year, and they've been the big time playmakers for us. And it was just unfortunate. There was 2 passes that we weren't able to complete that were really big, and they know that. They've been able to respond to that. They understand that responsibility, and that's what goes back to that reason. We want to be the reason. We want to be the reason that maybe we didn't have success, and we also take the responsibility that we were the reason we did have success. And that's a huge responsibility on young people, and they're learning how to be able to handle all that.
As a young team that hasn't experienced defeat in so long, how important have the seniors and the leaders been in that locker room to making sure everyone has the right attitude moving?
Yeah, it's critical. Just go right back to the culture, one game mentality. This is the next game. This is for the Big Ten West Championship in our mind, because if you want a chance to win the Big Ten West, you got to beat the Big Ten West champ, right? And Northwestern's still the Big Ten, the defending Big Ten West champions, right? So that's how we have approached this whole week.
Do you get heavily involved during a game, and just what you said, if you're down 13-0, are you saying we need to run it and here's who I want in the game, or do the coordinators and position coaches say it's going to be Douglas, Johnson, etc., and we're throwing to so-and-so?
Well, we do all that, who it's going to during the week, right, in terms of the plays and all those other things. I don't think the score necessarily determines that, because we have plays for Tyler, we have plays for Rashad, we have plays for Chris Altman-Bell, we have plays for Demetrius, and then our backs. And so it's all done on the game plan prior to that. But I think that when you're down 13-0, yes, we got to get the ball in the air. We got to start putting some drives together here, and might have to go to the pass game a little quicker.
PJ, how much of a game changer has Antoine Winfield Jr. been for your defense this year?
I think he's one of the best game changers in all of college football. When you have guys that can literally change the game with one play, change the game by how hard they play, be disruptive of teams' offenses, that's what he's brought. He's a special player at any level, and I'm just glad I don't have to play against him. He's on our team.
Tanner was obviously lobbying to get back in there after that one play in the heat of the moment. How is he handling sort of that, having to be patient now that he's in the protocol this week?
Just as Tanner would, probably not as well as you think he would be. And that's okay. He's a competitor, and that's why it's completely to the medical staff, because he is such a competitor. He wants to get back out there, but the medical team's got him, and they'll make the decisions for him.
Got 1 or 2 more for
Are
Coach.
Lance and Dunlap good to go, or what's the update on that?
I will see. Day to day.
There were some reports out of State College today that Sean Clifford was dealing with death threats after the Minnesota game. Is that something that you guys have to deal with internally?
I don't know of any specific texts or tweets or messages to our players about those types of things, but that's how sick our world is, yes. I'm sure our players have dealt with that. I think you've dealt with that as coaches. I think you deal with that when you're in the public light and you're in sports. People have such a passion for something, and they take it to an extreme level. But that's what I don't understand is we have an open public, we have a freedom of speech, which I get. But when that becomes threatening people, I don't know. If you did that face-to-face and you told somebody you were going to do that face-to-face and they filed a police report, they'd probably follow up on that. Well, how was Twitter any different? I just don't know if our laws have caught up to our social media. I don't know how that's appropriate. I don't know how that's not a crime of threatening somebody's life because of a football game, of a kid. Someone's going to have to describe or explain that to me. When you're a grown-up, right, you can handle those things, right? But still, I don't think there's no room for it, right? Whether it's the bully board or Twitter or whatever it is. People can have no name, no face, and say exactly what they want with no accountability. I just don't understand how our world's that way, and we wonder why we have a lot of the problems and issues we have in our world today. Because anybody can say whatever they want to somebody and get away with it. And I just don't. The world we live in today in 2019, I don't know how somebody can do that. And it's pretty pathetic. And so I'm saying that. Any other questions?
Coach, with the offensive line, what's the health status of the offensive line and playing against a unit like Iowa's defense on Saturday? Was that a huge learning opportunity?
It was a huge learning opportunity. They're one of the best defensive lines in college football, one of the best defenses in college football. I think it was wonderful for our offensive line to get that type of experience. And they went from Penn State to Iowa, which are very similar. We got to grow up. We just got to keep growing up. There's no seniors on that offensive line. And the better competition they keep playing against, the better they're going to be. And, they failed a lot, but they also had a lot of success as well. But one thing I was really proud of our entire football team, including the O-line, was they're all ready to come back and get better and go right back to work. And the response mechanism of these players has been inspiring as a coach because you never know when you're going to walk into a room what they're going to be like. And then Sunday, these guys were fired up, ready to go to get better. They know what's on the line, and Minnesota football is really important right now. And I think that's really special. And, one loss will not define us, whether it's a win or a loss. One game will not define us. We have a lot to get better at. I think that's very obvious at every position. But on the offensive line, when you give up 6 sacks, you've got to find out why you did that. And I think our guys responded really well. All right. Appreciate it. Row the boat, Skate Mile, go Gophers. Thank you.